We want to welcome you back to the Empower and Equip podcast. We are super excited about today's episode. This is a ministry of Mobberly Baptist Church here in Longview, Texas, and I am the host, Brandon Watson. I'm Connect Pastor here at Mobberly, and each week we have some wonderful guests and a special co-host, and we'll start with our special co-host today to the Mobberly family. This guy is no stranger. This is Greg Martin, and you'll never know what he's going to say. And that's what we love about you, Greg, are you going to be on your best behavior today?
I would just like to say I am stranger. So
Okay.
We're going to have a great time today. I'm looking forward to hearing some wisdom and hanging around with you, Brandon. It's a great deal today.
Well, tell us a little bit about what you do at Mobberly and a little bit about you and your family.
Okay. Well, I've been at Mobberly for almost 18 years now. My role now is a pastor of congregational care, which involves a number of different things: prayer ministry, benevolence ministry. I like to say I'm the jack of all trades and master of none here on the staff. So just help out where I can. Love being here at Mobberly. Betsy and I grew up together in Grand Prairie, went to high school together, church together all of our lives, but got married in 1980. So we've been married for 43 years now. So the best 43 years of Betsy's life, I'm sure she would say that, but certainly the best 43 of my life. So
she would say that if she was here.
If she was here to defend herself. Yeah. So we've been married 43 years. We have two children. Our daughter Katie lives in Dallas, is a landscape architect. Our son Mitchell and his wife Chrissy, our three grandchildren, Logan, Ross, and Hope, live in Richardson. He's an engineer, and so we're grateful. They lived in California, so we're grateful to have them back close enough where we can be a little bit more involved in their lives. So love our family.
So 18 years here at Mobberly.
Right.
Man, you started when I was 6. That's pretty awesome.
And now you're 8.
Yeah, I know. It's amazing. But we are excited because we do have our special guest with us today, Wayne and Karen Jacobs. They've been here at Mobberly for I don't even know how many years y'all have been. 15 years, and been very active in our marriage ministry. And I'm going to just ask you guys just to tell us a little bit about yourselves and your family.
Okay. Well, we have been married 37 years, so we're behind the Martins on that. We moved to this area of East Texas in 2001, so we've been here about 22 years. Both Karen and I teach at LeTourneau University and enjoy being able to drive back and forth to work together.
Added bonus. Mm-hmm. We have 3 kids. Our oldest, David, and his wife Chelsea, live in Tyler. They are the parents of Harper and Noah. Noah's our newest grand. We have 5. He was born in May. Our middle son, Ryan, and his wife, Mary Beth, live in White Oak with their 2 girls, Emma and Sophie. So we have a lot of hands-on grandparenting with them. And then our daughter, Kelsey, and her husband, Michael, are in Dallas area, McKinney area. And so they have Callie that was born in January. And a fun fact, Greg Martin and I attended the same church in Grand Prairie, just a few years apart.
And you lived to tell about it.
Yeah. We did.
It's the home of all great people.
That's it.
No, that's great. And thank you for being here today. We are going to be talking about finances and family as it relates to marriage. As you know, in 2023, Homefront, the Homefront initiative, our homes are our major emphasis. And so we are concentrating the first several episodes of our podcast on marriage. And I hope you guys have enjoyed them. And we want to encourage you to continue to like the podcast, share it with friends, share it with other couples that you think this would be a great benefit to them. And so we hope that the Empower and Equip podcast will be a real encouragement, but also challenging, fun, and give you tools also to help you continue to grow in your marriage and grow in your relationship with Christ. So today we are talking about finances and family. And so, it's interesting. We're going to start with this question because, really finances and family are usually in the top really almost 3, but maybe 5 of issues that couples face.
Right.
And a lot of it really goes with a lot of things of what we bring in to the marriage, how we view those things, how we treat those things. So Wayne and Karen, let's talk about finances first. Let's start there. Why do you think that finances really have been such a struggle for marriages?
Well, I think you hit it on the head when you said that it's something that we kind of all grow up with. We each have core values. I mean, if you think about it, from the time that you're very young, you're taught about finances. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden you're thrown into a marriage where I have my values, he has his values, and many times we find they never talk about them before they get married.
Yeah.
So that's a big issue. So just some fun facts about marriages and finances. Our belief is that couples can really work through things when they work together. It's amazing because when you talk to people, and you guys may be the same way, there's always a spender and there's always a saver. Sometimes you're going to find 2 savers and sometimes 2 spenders, which makes it a lot of fun. But people really look at money, differently with that. Some people look at money as like an ego thing. I have money, therefore I have power. Mm-hmm. And when I have power over people, I tend to bring that into the marriage relationship as well.
Right.
And we'll kind of get into that a little bit later, what you do with when one's working and one chooses to work at home. How do you deal with that? And then we've got to talk about debt. So in early 2023, they did some stats. It said the average American family has about $100,000 in debt. We carry almost $6,000 per person on our credit cards. That's huge. So what it looks at is about 10% of what we spend as families goes toward debt.
Yeah.
And it has a huge thing on families. And then there's a couple other things as well.
And that's true. A couple other things to think about. One is that the whole idea about couples don't talk about money. They don't really plan and think about it. You have to talk about money before you get married. You have to talk about money after you have kids. Each kid, each time, each transition, each job change, retirement, all the different stages of life. We have to talk about how that money is being used and how we want to prioritize savings and spending, because you have to look at both. But we also have to finish up this idea of issues with ideas. We need people in our life that can talk to us, that can speak truth into our lives. The Bible talks about in Proverbs about plans without advisors fail.
Yeah.
But when you have many counselors, you succeed. So finding a financial advisor is a critical point to get individual. In fact, I would recommend a Christian financial counselor that can really focus on what are the biblical principles in saving, biblical principles in how to spend our money, but also how to invest and to use our money and to steward it well.
Yeah. Okay, you brought this up, and so I do want to ask, how do y'all match up as far as spender, saver?
I'm the saver.
I'm the spender.
Okay, I'm the spender, and Claire is the saver.
It's unanimous. Betsy's the saver. I'm the spender, but I'm the nerd, and she's the free spirit. I like to do the spreadsheet.
Yeah,
but I like to spend it all as soon as I get it. So yeah.
And that surprises me.
Well, that's what I live for, is to surprise you.
Yes. Well, you've done it again. Congratulations. But no, that is really good wisdom, and I think a lot of times, especially as a young couple, you talked about this. You bring in that debt. I mean, a lot of times it's school debt,
yes,
and then it's like I haven't really got a grasp on working within that budget and working through that, and then you need that wisdom, like you said, Wayne. A lot of times young couples are cautious about having people speak into their life early on until it sometimes is like a 911 situation, and they go, "We got to figure out something." And so that's a good word to have someone speak into your life, for sure.
Yeah, I think when you think about it, all the things you do to prepare for marriage, what a small percentage of that is based on how can we manage our finances, which are going to be a huge part of your married life. And so it's so important to get a grip on that as early as possible. It's never too late, but especially early on as you do that. You know, there are so many ways. I think you mentioned this, Karen. There are so many ways that people look at money. Some view it as security for me. Some view it as just a way to have fun. Some view it as the way to control their spouse or what have you. It's so important for us to have a healthy view of money, resources, as we go into marriage. What do you think a healthy view of money is in a husband-wife relationship?
Well, I think the one stage is to look at all of those different things you mentioned, from enjoyment to focusing on security issues, are not necessarily unhealthy places to start, but they can become unhealthy when we look at them from the wrong perspective. For example, one unhealthy, in fact, we're going to talk about some marriage killers when it comes to finances here right now, but one of those is having separate checking accounts or separate joint account or separate accounts that are not joint. That's a terrible way to hide money, to cause suspicion. And one author said that was the same as, or is called, financial infidelity, because you're not trusting your spouse with that. We even had a couple that we worked with that she would not consider letting her husband have access to her money. And that was a big red flag. It's a marriage killer itself we have to be concerned about. Second marriage killer could be carrying old debts and not dealing with those debts. Karen talked about the idea of debts, and whether it's student loan debts, whether it's debts for cars coming into a marriage, or even looking at debts currently, that can become a real problem in marriage that we have to focus on becoming debt-free. I believe God doesn't want us to be tied to debt. I mean, there are some debts that we have to have. I remember Dave Ramsey saying years and years ago that the one debt we could have is our house, and everything else we should be paying off. We've tried to do that through our marriage, to be able to have that. But as you mentioned, this whole idea of personality and savers and spenders, we have known that all the way through. She knows I'm a spender, and I would like to spend money all the time. I'd love to do that. She wants to save it. So there's a balance, and understanding that balance is important. So a marriage killer is ignoring those things.
Yeah. Well, we'll kind of get close to wrapping up this part, the finances, but why is it so important for couples to really be on the same page about their view of money? Even if you recognize you have differences, let's be on the same page. Why is that so important?
Well, for Christians, it's biblical. Paul tells us in Philippians that he wants us to be of the same mind. He wants us to focus on being united and being together with that. And so having a concept of we need to be together, we need to think the same way is important in finances. And we need to think about our spouse's needs first, our family's needs first in this process. In fact, Philippians tells us, do nothing out of selfish ambition or empty pride, but in humility, consider others more important than you. That's being on the same page. I've got to see how Karen views money and how that becomes part of how we make decisions. That becomes important.
So you had asked us to look at some general maybe tips and other things. I'm going to tell you, finances is like a picture of everything else going on. I mean, it really is, because if there's that lack of trust, it shows in finances. If there's other issues with communication, it shows in finances. So we tell people all the time, talk about finances. And it's amazing. Some people don't want to. It's a secretive thing, but you have got to talk about it. And you've got to set goals. I mean, our goals are so different now. We're looking toward retirement goals and what you do, but it's different when you have kids. Just be honest. Communicate. Man, it's a big thing. That's
important. That's an earlier episode of the podcast. We talked about communication and conflict. And so these four things: communication, conflict, finances, and family, like we're talking about today. Now, Greg, I want to come back over to you just for a second, because you've been a part of Financial Peace University. And as we're talking about tips and tools, man, so many people have been impacted by FPU, what we call it here, Financial Peace University. Tell us a little bit about that.
Okay, and what you said about communication is so important, Karen, that one of the things about Financial Peace University, we need to have a plan for spending our money, a budget, and we need to be able to talk about that. What do you want? What do I want? What do we need together? We need to be able to look at where we're at financially. Betsy and I put together a balance sheet every month to say what are our assets compared to our liabilities. Are we in the hole or are we doing okay?
Right.
These kinds of tools Dave Ramsey has put together in a thing called Financial Peace University, which is a 9-week class, about an hour and a half each week, that walks you through the process of learning how to put together a budget, learning, am I a nerd or a free spirit, learning, am I a spender or a saver, learning how to have that communication. And so doing it for 9 weeks makes you have those conversations and teaches you how to have them that are so important. So we're going to actually be having some classes this fall. We'll do it again next spring. But if somebody's interested in Financial Peace University, they could email me at gregm@marberly.org and we could get them information about that.
Yeah, so definitely would encourage you, if you're out there going, wow, we just really need to get a handle on this, because we feel like we're constantly arguing about this. We're not on the same page. We need to do better about a budget. We need to rise above the debt. And I would encourage you to make sure that you check out Financial Peace University. It's one of our ministry opportunities here at Mobberly. Okay, so let's transition a little bit. Let's talk about family. Family is so important. Our views of family, how, some, couples, when they get together, they've had great experience with family. Some had horrible experiences with family, relationships. Planning a family as a couple is a whole nother thing that you run into. So let's talk a little bit about this.
So you mentioned your kids, your grandkids, but you could take it up a level and think about your parents, those relationships and those kinds of things. Family has a lot of dimensions in it, but why is family so important to you in particular? Peel the onion a little bit for us. Why is it important to you?
I think we look at a family as an illustration of what God created love to be, and we understand more about God's unconditional love for us that Jesus talks about in John 13. He says that we need to love each other. That's how people are going to know who we are, that there'll be disciples based on our love. So we learn to teach our kids to love. And sometimes we teach our parents to love and the way that we go through. But it's that process of understanding what that means to love our kids. How do we love them more than anything else? But it also gives us the opportunity to bring out the best in us.
Yeah.
That we are trying to be role models for our kids, for our family itself, even dealing with unbelievers in our family. We have that opportunity to share Jesus with them. We even got to see that with Karen's dad.
So there were a lot of different things. A little bit of our story. I lost my mom when I was in my 40s. And so shortly after that, took care of grandparents. I lost my dad to cancer. We've lost both of Wayne's parents. What was interesting, family gives you a really good picture of what to do.
Yeah.
And so when my dad was dealing with chemo and other stuff, he lived about 40 minutes from here, and our boys were they loved my dad, and it was great. And we got to watch them go and interact and take care of him during that. That's where you learn to do life. That's where you learn community. That's where you learn relationships. And we didn't do things perfectly or well at all times, but we just continue to seek God, and we've seen some amazing things happen through family.
Yeah. And I would probably say this too, is that some people have had bad experiences with family and feel very distant from family, not close to their parents or what have you. And that's what I think is cool about the church, is that you can find community here as well. That God, being our Heavenly Father, is perfect.
Amen.
And and I know that sometimes people get that block that, hey, my earthly father was horrible, and they feel like that's going to transfer over. But one thing is, God is faithful, and He's a good Father, and He's there for us. Now, when we talk about marriage, obviously, there's always the conversation of maintaining those healthy balances in that relationship as parents to, we're releasing our children in the care of someone else, which is always hard, right? When you're leave and cleave, right? And you've heard the sayings, the in-laws and outlaws, and not that I'm not saying you're an outlaw.
I'm not touching it.
Okay, but it is always a touchy subject because just knowing those healthy boundaries. So let's start that dialogue, and let's talk a little bit about that, about how do we keep those boundaries. And I think some of it's by experience. Like some couples want that, some couples do not.
Right. Sure.
So let's talk about it.
I think there's also a dimension in that about how close one husband or wife are close to their family or not. And that plays into this, but you have to have some boundaries, and those boundaries are for marriages to be healthy. They have to have that alone time. They have to have time to process, and they need to get away from the kids, and they need to get away from their parents sometimes or other family members to really focus on that. So those times to communicate is huge, and it has to be carved out because kids are going to take every minute of the day that you have.
Right.
That's just going to happen. And you may have in-laws that take every minute of your day that you don't want to give up. So it's making the decision. I've got to have a priority, as well as to let kids see that your marriage is important, and that our kids used to tell us they never saw us fight. They just never saw behind the scenes. They didn't see us having conversations.
It happens.
We fought quietly.
Yes. We're not screamers or yellers, but to hold your boundaries, you have to be able to say, hey, I may need to take this out. I may need to take it to a different place. I may need to have a timeout and do something with that. But it's important for us to let our family see we are resolving those things, but we need to do it together. It's not going to be the whole family comes in and contributes. We have to do that together. Yeah. And there's more.
I think you have to prioritize things. Yeah. I think as young parents, everything goes into your kids. When you're caring for your parents, everything goes into your parents. And so we struggled when we were caretaking for his dad to try to make time for us. And I think I'm just going to throw in, you have got to laugh at yourself.
Yes.
We serve an amazing God who creates things for us, and we need to enjoy it. And I'm sorry, I am going to laugh at myself.
Yeah.
Take life seriously, but heavens, don't take yourself seriously.
Yeah. I learned a long time ago, laugh at yourself. Join in with what everybody else is doing while they're laughing at me. So,
Well, I don't look over here after you say that. But no, I think one of the interesting things about in-laws is we had that modeled well for us by our parents, and now we're on the other side of that, having to model how do we handle that with a precious, godly daughter-in-law and make sure that they feel like they have their space. So I think one of the things we've done is look for people who seem to be doing it well and maybe learn a bit from them. But let me flip the switch a little bit. So that's kind of the going up, our parents, how we deal with that. Look at the other end of the spectrum. What would you say to a young couple who is either engaged, thinking about marriage, or maybe newlywed couples about what it means to be on the same page about having children and how you raise those children?
Yeah.
We have the privilege of being able to walk through pre-marriage discussions with couples, and we spend time talking about what does it mean to discipline your children? What does it mean to have outside commitments? What does it mean to plan for things? And to do that is important that they go through and talk about it. And so we spend a couple weeks just doing those things in our pre-marriage time. But we focus on making sure they learn to pray together, that they have to come to that same page of where does God want us to be and where the unity is in there. We've got to spend time just understanding that each of us has a different role.
Right.
Me as the dad, as the husband, I have a role to play in the family. Karen has a role to play as the wife and the mother itself. And I have to value her within that. We've seen couples that the one person dominates and the other person just kind of shies away, and we have to make sure that each person's voice is heard.
Yeah.
Granted, men need to lead. There needs to be a lead, but there needs to be a understanding of what the strengths are. Karen may be stronger in some areas than other. Karen is the better finance person in our family, but I take care of the checkbook as far as keeping track of that. That's not because I'm better at it, but it's just something I chose to do as the leader of a family. I chose to take on that role. Right. So it depends on how we choose that.
I think the one thing, if I could go back and be a young mom again, you don't have to address every issue. I mean, you need to talk about kids and other things, but parenting is a big thing. Sometimes kids do things that are absolute accidents,
Yeah.
which is very different than willful disobedience. I didn't get that as a young mom. So it's kind of interesting when you talk about, it's like, ooh, if I could go back, what would I do differently? That would be it, because kids are going to be there and you've got to deal with it. And people need to talk about it early. How are you going to discipline? How are you going to do things? Two different people, just like finances.
Well, as we're getting close to the end of our time together, just a couple of other things that I just want us to hit on for sure before we wrap up. Really, what are maybe some tools, some advice that you would give couples that might be struggling with family? They're like, okay, yeah, we've talked a little bit about that, but how can I get some help on this?
Well, I think one thing that our church is doing right now is very important. It's the marriage challenge that our pastor encourages to do, and asking questions on a regular basis, whether it's weekly or some of those questions on a more monthly basis, but to have a deliberate dialogue that you're going through. But you also have to have deliberate time. For example, Mobberly hosts marriage moments once a month. Every month in Papacita's restaurant, second Monday of the month, 6:45 to 8. Childcare available. That's my little advertisement.
Free dinner.
Free dinner. And so
Do you know the Papacitas jingle? I'm just kidding.
No, I don't. But that is a deliberate date night. It's deliberate effort. And we as families, as couples, we need to take that deliberate time.
Sure.
Some families struggle, and they're just going to a once a month kind of thing may not be enough. And our church has just launched a new program called Reengage that gives them individuals come in for a study, they work together, they go through, and they can get through some of the more difficult times. Those are all available through Mobberly.
Yeah. And I think I liked what you said, Greg. We were told early on in our marriage, we need to find a couple that's about 10 years older, so that they can show us how they did things. And at the same time, a couple that's about 10 years younger, so we can mentor them through this. So you've got to be able to talk to people and confide in people and trust in people. And to this day, we've tried to stick to that. And I'm also going to throw out a shout out to Hope Road. We've got an amazing resource, just some godly counselors, and help is there. All you have to do is just throw a hand up and we'll be there to catch you.
Yeah.
I know you mentioned several times communication. Sometimes you need a little help to facilitate, to teach us how to do that. A Hope Road or a mentor couple, communication is paramount.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, as we wrap up, one thing that we have coming up in November is the Homefront Conference.
Yes.
And you guys are a little bit, a big part of it, helping to plan that, see that through. I know you've been working with Pastor Andrew on that. Tell us a little bit about it and why somebody ought to think about coming.
Well, we're spending so much time this year talking about how to make Christ the center of our lives, Christ the center of our homes. And so the Homefront Conference is really focusing on how to really sum all those things up and make them work well, whether it's singleness, whether it's family, or even general. So we've got opportunities for every stage of life to come and be a part of that.
So mark your calendars, November 4th and November 5th. Sign up is going to be through our church-wide text that's going to come out probably in October. November 4th, we're going to gather probably late afternoon, maybe around 4, have a little bit of worship. We're going to break out and do sessions. Oh, some of the sessions we're really excited about. Hospitality for God's glory. Mm-hmm. How cool is that? Engaging the culture of finances. We talked about finances. We're doing some family sessions, how to nurture gratitude in your child.
Right.
Godly grandparenting, love languages. So that's going to be a good one. Foster and adopt, because we have a lot of families there. Then we're going to do some marriage sessions as well. How to have an intentional marriage, shared responsibilities, conflict management, communication. So all those are going to be there, but sign up's going to be really easy. They're going to send it out church-wide. You just click on the link, you sign up. That's going to be Saturday evening, 2 main speakers, then a Q&A that night. We're going to have a coffee session with them. And then Sunday morning, we're going to have 3 different sessions on Christ at the center of my life.
Right.
So the speakers are going to preach in our morning services, both here and at Marshall. So we're excited.
Yeah, should be good. And if you're single, make
Yes.
sure you're there.
Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Sessions just for you.
Yeah, sessions specifically just for you.
Yes.
So, well, I wanted to thank you guys for coming in and just sharing your wisdom and just through experience, right? We live, we learn, we grow, and thank you guys for what you're doing here in the marriage ministry at Moberly. Thank you, Greg Martin, for everything that you do.
My pleasure.
Your
I learn from them every time I'm around them.
your wit, your humor, your care, the way you take care of everybody here at Moberly, you are loved and appreciated, my friend.
Yes. Yes.
And so we want to thank you guys for being a part of this podcast. Remember to share it. You can find us a video podcast on YouTube. We're available on Spotify. We're also on Apple and Google Podcasts. And so please share it with your friends, like it, and give us some feedback. We'd love to hear back from you as well. Thanks for joining us.